GRCSU. Welcome to another week with Coffee and Coaches. And so today, if I can talk, that would be helpful. Today, we are going to be a little bit of a follow-up from last week, but we have viewers and windows, Corey? Windows and viewers.
And what's in your classroom?
Yep.
So I guess maybe starting off with why, how this came about. Our team has a lot of discussions. We tend to debrief after a lot of the things that we do, and even our Coffee with Coaches last week discussing how to celebrate Read Across America just sparked more discussion and more questions amongst our group, and the amount of work that we still have to do, and what that might be, and kind of what are our next steps. And so I think just focusing on the literacy, we thought that we might go just into more conversation about the types of books that we see in our classroom, and maybe the type of books that we want to intentionally include in our classroom, and not just one day a year, but all year, and how to really integrate it into our curriculum. So I have the presentation up. If you want me to share that.
Yeah, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Ooh, hold on.
Uh-oh.
It is not liking my computer screen for whatever reason. Hold on, let me try something different.
I can pull it up too if we need.
Okay, it likes that one.
Okay.
Maybe it's because I started it in present mode.
Oh, that could be.
I confused it. So I think part of our discussion that we had last week was really talking about, who are the students in our classroom, and it sparked a discussion about the demographics of our state. And so Al did some looking into that for us. So Al, I'll let you talk about this.
Yeah, so this particular slide, this is a very quick look at ethnic demographics within the state of Vermont. And over here on I guess that's the left side of your screen, is United States Census Bureau information. The image up top is actually linked to the Census Bureau Quick Facts on Vermont. I took a little snippet out of it from the race and ethnic origin standpoint. And you can see that according to them in 2020, Vermont is populated with about 94.2% white people, and all the other ethnic minorities that there could be make up the rest of that population. And there's a list there. Interestingly, when you do the comparison in the Northeast of the United States, Maine is made up of 94.4% white people. Vermont is number 2 at 94.2. New Hampshire falls in number 4 at 93.1%. So those 3 states in the northeastern end of the United States, yeah, we're the whitest region in the country. Over on the right-hand side of the screen is a little bit of statistical information from the Agency of Education about our school population. So this is the makeup of students within schools in Vermont. And to get this information here, I picked a random school from our SU. So the school information isn't necessarily as important, but you can see in this particular school, it's 97% white. The SU as a whole is a little higher than the overall state population, about 94.7%. And the state is listing the student population about 88% white. So that just gives us an idea of the makeup of the population. There's a couple other interesting facts. If you actually do click on those links to explore a little more, you can find out some other things that make us interesting and unique. Things like the education profile. About 92% of the population of the state of Vermont graduated high school. About 38% of the population of Vermont has a bachelor's degree or higher. So there's some disparities in terms of education. In terms of economics, income and poverty, about 10% of our population lives in poverty. But if you look up the state student population data, we have a school within our district where 12% of students are free and reduced lunch students, which is how we measure poverty in the school system. We have one school that 48% of our students are free and reduced lunch. There are some other really interesting things in there too, like computer and internet use I found fascinating within the state of Vermont. 89.9% of households in Vermont have a computer as of 2020. So 10% don't. But of those households, only 81% have internet access. So we're closer to 29%. I'm sorry, 19% who don't. So when we're talking about equity, those are the sorts of things we ought to be really looking at with the state. And that brings us to the next slide in the presentation, which I'll stop talking now and let other people talk about why we need windows.
Yeah, so I think, Al, you bring up a really good point with that data. I mean, we are a predominantly white state. So, you know, we certainly need to look at equity in terms of race, but I think there are so many other ways that we need to look at equity that sometimes we forget. And, you know, in the state of Vermont, race is an issue, but so is poverty, so is access, you know, looking at things like disability ability. I'm trying to think, I was like making a list of, in my head of different things to
what our families look like.
Yes, yeah. Family makeups. I mean, we have students that live with grandparents, aunts and uncles, who have 2 moms, 2 dads, who have mom in one house, dad in another house, who only have mom in their life or only have dad in their life, who have both parents at home, who are being raised by older siblings. I mean, so many different makeups of families. So when we look at our books, you know, who are we really portraying? Now, I am not super familiar with the StreamYard, which has been a fantastic platform for our conversations here. I don't know if I can play a video on it like I would with Google Meet, so I'm not going to. But instead, what we'll do is we'll link this slide into the comments of YouTube, and you can go through the slide and listen. This is like a 2-minute video. And she talks about mirrors, windows, and sliding doors. But essentially, oops, don't want to play. Just move on. Essentially, our windows allow us to experience the world beyond us. So it allows us to experience things that we're not going to experience in our own lives. So it might be learning about different races or experiencing characters from different races, different religions. Getting to learn about new countries, states, climate zones, places that we may not otherwise visit. We can learn about animals that are not native to our region through books. Learn about different life experiences. We can learn about different struggles or successes, different jobs, things like that. And so those books that provide us windows into the world are really incredibly important to help build our knowledge of the world outside our own front door. And I think this was a lot of what we were talking about last week with many of the books that we were recommending, or many of the websites that had book lists, that those were books that were very diverse and would offer our students windows into a world beyond themselves. We also need to make sure that we are including books that are mirrors, books that reflect who our students are. By offering them books that reflect who they are, we are letting them relate to characters better, which in turn allows them to connect with the stories, and it provides them a sense of belonging and familiarity. So kind of how does this connect to what Al was saying? we need to be very careful when we're looking at diverse books that we're not only focusing on race, but we're taking into account the demographics of our state and also making sure that our bookshelves and our lessons are including books that represent all of our students. And so we have resources. And I don't want to monopolize the conversation, so feel free to jump in.
I just wanted to say that the video was really interesting because she talks about sliding doors too, and I've heard this concept of windows and mirrors before, but not really thought a lot about the sliding door. And I'm not sure I'm going to get it right, but she said the sliding door is where you can look in to another world, but it's opening so you can walk through and embrace that environment, like be welcomed into it. Is that a good summary of what she was saying? It was just really moving, and to think of it that way for me.
Yeah, that's kind of how I took it too, is that you're kind of getting that look in, learning about it, experiencing it to the point where then you can enter it. And I will say that I was telling Jenny that there's some really great TED Talks that kind of go off from her video about windows, mirrors, and sliding doors that are really worth looking up. And we can link them in down below once we're done with our live session. But really, really great conversations. So I guess our resources, did anybody else want to share resources?
I was looking back through last week at the resources, and I don't have it right in front of me right now, but in one of the resources, there was actually another link, and that gave a really good description on the whole like Dr. Seuss topic, and it talked a lot about using it as an educational moment and not having like a culture of just get rid of everything idea. So if people were interested in that kind of perspective, we can add that one to this resource list too, as I find it. But you can find by clicking on any of these resources, there's always more inside of that. So take that few minutes to like go in and find something that speaks to you and makes sense to you that will help you on your journey. Personally, I would call myself at the beginning of this journey of learning and trying to take things in and understanding. And sometimes the articles are just way too deep for me. But you can find things that work for you. So I encourage you to dig through and share. I mean, if there's people, whoever's out there in the SU, if you have great resources, we would love to know about them and share them.
So I don't think we need to go through every single one of these resources, but we can highlight a couple of them. I have to say the first two were actually shared by Alyssa Hutchins because, and I'm going to so get it wrong. I'm not going to say it because I'm going to totally get it wrong. Tomorrow it was in the newsletter, and I was looking at it and I can't remember, but we want to be very inclusive with all of our students, and she included two resources with books that specifically talk about disabilities and differences, and books that we can read with our students to help them understand. And she made a really fantastic point in that, in previous years, our kids are exposed to everyone within their school building. And so they get to know students in other grades, and they are exposed to all different kids from all walks of life. And this year they're not. And so their awareness around differences is not where it normally is because they're not experiencing it. So providing these books and reading these books with our students would be really important. I do want to talk about the Vermont Golden Dome Book Award, which actually was the former DCF list. So what they do is it is a middle grades book list, and they come out with this every year. And I don't know the formal process, but books are nominated. Kids read the books, they vote on the books, and then I think one book comes out on top. But they are really thoughtful with the books that they put out every year. And so many times the books have, the books are very inclusive and very diverse in nature. So I'm trying to think of books that I've read previously. Well, one of them, I actually have it. I brought a couple books with me. Is I have Anne Braden's The Benefits of Being an Octopus, which I really think every single teacher in the state of Vermont should have to read. But it's about a middle grade Vermont student and the struggles she faces growing up in poverty in Vermont. And she is the oldest. I can't remember. She's the oldest of three kids. But she takes care of her siblings. You know, so because her mom is a single mom and needs to work, she takes care of her siblings, and it really highlights the struggles that she faces. And you know, myself being a teacher in Vermont, I was blown away by this book because it really gave me a really good insight into different struggles that our students are facing. Clean Getaway, I want to say, and I could be wrong, but it's another book by Nick Stone, but it's about a biracial boy who winds up going on a road trip with his grandmother and really learning that race is very much alive in different regions of our country and what he experiences through that. So I think that the Vermont Golden Dome book list is a really incredible resource, and they're very thoughtful in the books that they put out.
Lisa commented that there are some great books recommended each year on that list.
Yeah. I would also recommend Jeannie Phillips puts out a podcast called #VTEdReads, and she has episodes that highlight different books. And the great thing is that there are kid books and there are adult books, and they're all books to get you really thinking about many different topics, not just equity, but anything and everything related to education. And she has a different guest that comes and talks about the book, and they always have really nice conversations. So I recommend checking that out. And then the last one, and I'm going
to plug you, Corey. So she has one episode. So if you want to learn a little bit more about why Corey is saying, and I agree as well, that all teachers should be required to read The Benefits of Being an Octopus, there is a podcast where Corey was the guest with Jeannie, and they talked about that book. So go look that one up.
I know I'm going to plug that book any chance I get. She has a new book too that I need to buy and read because I loved her first one. So the resource that I pulled up here was actually created by two fifth grade teachers, Kyle Chadburn and Andrea Bratton from Orange County Supervisory Union. And they developed this a couple years ago. I want to say I don't think they did it at MGI, but they shared it with us at MGI, and it's such a fantastic resource. So they have a list of books, and I imagine that they went through their school library is what they did. They kind of did a library audit to find what they had within their school library. And they have listed, my internet is a little slow, so bear with me. They have listed different books, title, author, fiction, nonfiction, the grade level band, and then the topics, the issue and topics that these books address. And so while it's not our library, I do think it's a great resource to use if you're looking for a book on something specific that this might be a great place to go to look to see if there are any recommendations. And then of course you've got our full, all the libraries that are SU. I imagine we must do interlibrary loan, but if also local libraries, they do do interlibrary loan. And then we do have the Green Mountain Library Consortium that you can also get books through. And those would be in digital content, but still, a book is a book regardless of its format. So I thought that this was a really great resource, and I thought that, you know, hey, at some point, if we were like feeling super ambitious, wouldn't it be cool if we had kind of created a catalog like this of different books throughout our supervisory union that we could loan out to each other to talk about different things. And so those were just a couple of resources that I personally wanted to highlight. And Al and Jenny, I don't know if you two have others that you want to mention.
They're all great in their own right.
Yeah, I mean, my own encouragement is to explore, really. They're all good resources. I don't know. I put in my plug for reading and literacy all the time because reading is probably the best way most people have to expand their horizons anyway. It's cheaper than buying airline tickets. It's cheaper than driving across the country, but it does give you insight into what other people think, and it exposes your mind to new and different ideas. And it's just so important that we get students into reading. It's really the foundation of all other learning, that literacy piece, and anything we can do to expose them to things that they would never otherwise be exposed to, we ought to try and do.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so happy Kim Carr is listening. She just said, and we can explore Sora now. So Sora, I was just wondering if I could find it really quick and share it, but it's another book sharing access. I think it's digital. Maybe Kim could tell more about that. But I believe it's linked in all of the school's library pages. Yeah, it's a Vermont. Let's see. I'm going to share. Maybe. Hold on. Sorry, guys. It is not liking me right now.
She says that they have ebooks and audiobooks.
Yes. And yeah, my computer is not wanting to work.
Where is it linked, Jenny?
It's Sora.com.
Oh, okay.
And I was just going to go to that, but it's, yeah, it might even kick me out completely.
On the wells. I think what we can do is we could probably get the link up and just link it right into our video in the comments section so that people could check that out. And maybe Kim wouldn't mind answering questions if people have questions, or maybe we can sit down with her and find out more information. We can do a coffee coaches on this resource.
Yeah. Maybe we can volunteer her to come on one day. I can hear her voice in my head right now. Sorry, Kim.
Oh, okay. Oh, this is cool.
I can no longer see you guys, so I hope can you hear me okay?
Yes.
You're still there.
I have no control of my computer right now, so if you could share the messages that are popping up, someone, that would be great.
Kim says that she would be happy to. I'm not sure if she's saying sure to our volunteering her or just to answer questions, but we won't bombard her too much.
She's awesome. She's really great.
You know, and thinking about other things too, in my looking at resources for today, somebody had made what I think is a good point, in that all of the books that we choose, well certainly we want to intentionally choose books that are dealing with difficult issues, that we can also choose books that have diverse characters who have storylines that are for fun. And, you know, so I was looking through my books. So I'm going to highlight another book. And so this one is Eddie Red, and it is written by Marcia Wells, who is actually a Vermont author. So we've got a theme here going with Vermont authors. But it's a mystery story for middle grade students, and the main character is a student of color. There's not much of a equity theme underneath it all, but I think it's important for our students to see themselves in stories that are for fun as well. And then just going off of our conversation, I can't remember if this was our public conversation or a conversation afterwards, but we were sharing just different books. And I think, Jenny, you had mentioned Fish in a Tree.
Yeah.
And, you know, so that is a middle grade girl, I believe, who has dyslexia. There's the book Rules, which is about a 12-year-old girl who has a brother who has autism. And, you know, thinking for myself, I grew up with a brother who is on the spectrum. And I'll tell you, finding stories from what I was going through, you know, was very difficult. So it's nice to see that they have books that come from multiple perspectives. And then the last one that I had listed was No Fixed Address, which I believe was also on the, I've got to look it up because I will never remember this name, on the Vermont Golden Dome Book Award list, which is about a student who wind up losing their apartment and they're homeless living in their van. So lots of things that many of our students are dealing with that we can include within our classroom.
You know, I find it interesting too. I think a lot of our curriculum and that sort of thing is trying to go that way too. I just was thinking about the Fountas and Pinnell testing, and one of the higher level books, there actually is one about a boy and his dad who live in their van, and the dad is homeless or without a job, unemployed, and the struggle that they had to go through. So I think that places like that are working harder to have stories that have that kind of inclusion in them. And it can be difficult. I remember some students reading it saying, whoa, you know, but it's good stuff.
So I think that we would love to hear what books you all have come across, you've read to your students, you have in your classroom. What would you recommend to teachers? Share it with us, and we can start compiling a great database on different books. You know, I think sometimes it can be really overwhelming to look through like the websites that we've listed under our resources. So if we're finding things that we've all used in our classroom that are maybe available for use, you know, we're really building our capacity to do this work. So let us know, email us.
Yes,
please don't be shy about it. I know there are a number of teachers out there that are building their own classroom libraries now because of COVID and all of that. So I know some exploration has been going on. So let us know what you found.
Or if you want to come onto a Coffee and Coaches and talk to us about a book that you've really read, we'd love to keep this conversation going.
Yeah, that would be great. Love that idea. Yeah, it would be neat to hear perspectives of how different teachers use different books in the classroom too, that are diverse topics. Really can't talk today. and hear like how it's done, how you do it in your classroom, what it's like to have those difficult conversations with students and whatnot.
And a plug for in-service, stay tuned, because I know that our equity team is going to be having some great conversations. Really looking forward to those. So.
Awesome. All right. Do you guys have the end broadcast button? Okay, great. Because I still can't access anything.
Technology troubles, it happens to all of us.
It happens to the best of us. See you guys all next week.
All right, bye.